She walked onto the set like she owned it, flashing her signature smirk, adjusting the designer blazer that screamed, "Don't mess with me." Meghan Markle wasn't here for a polite conversation. She came for validation, applause, and maybe, just maybe, a little revenge. But sitting across from her wasn't some overly agreeable journalist. It was Howard Stern, the radio legend who built an empire asking the questions no one else dared to. And he wasn't about to roll over just because royalty walked in wearing heels. The View's studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Cameras were being adjusted, mugs were perfectly placed on the iconic coffee table, and the audience, mostly women aged 35 to 60, eagerly whispered about the morning's special guest. "She's in makeup," a stagehand whispered into his headset, "and she's got opinions." Howard Stern, already seated in the guest co-host chair for the day, looked up from his notes with that signature sardonic expression. "Good," he muttered to himself. "Let's see if she can handle mine." The intro music blared and the camera panned across the panel. Whoopi Goldberg in a composed cardigan, Joy Behar in a vibrant orange jacket, Sunny Hostin beaming her usual PR-trained smile, and then, entering from stage left like it was a royal procession, came Meghan Markle. Applause erupted. She basked in it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Whoopi began, "joining us today is an actress, philanthropist, podcast host, and, of course, former royal Meghan Markle." Meghan waved, beaming, her body language oozing control. She took her seat, crossed her legs, and turned toward Joy with a perfectly calibrated smile. Joy launched into the soft questions first. "So Meghan, what brings you here today? I know you've got a lot going on." "I'm here to talk about truth," Meghan replied, a subtle lift of her chin signaling the beginning of a sermon. "Too many women are silenced. Too many people don't have a platform. I think it's important that I continue using mine responsibly." Howard leaned back, arms crossed. "Responsibly. That's a loaded word," he muttered, just loud enough for his mic to pick up. Meghan shot him a glance. "Excuse me?" Howard sat forward, polite smile in place. "I just mean, when you have a platform that large, every word gets amplified. Doesn't it ever cross your mind that sometimes silence can be more powerful than another Netflix deal?" The air stiffened. "Wow," Meghan said, her smile dropping into a disapproving stare. "That's a very old-school male perspective." Whoopi chuckled nervously. All right, let's keep it friendly. We've got a lot to cover." But Meghan was already off to the races. "Howard," she began, voice sweet but patronizing, "you made a career saying whatever you wanted, no matter who it hurt. So I find it interesting that you would lecture me about responsibility." The audience let out a collective, "Ooh." Howard nodded, unbothered. "Fair enough, but I also never claimed to be a humanitarian." Joy tried to steer things away. "Let's talk about your foundation work, Meghan." "No, let's not skip over this," Meghan interrupted, staring Howard down. "What exactly is your issue with me? That I married a prince? That I decided not to stay silent? Or is it just easier for you to make me the villain because I refuse to conform?" Howard exhaled slowly. "My issue, Meghan, isn't personal. It's observational. You want to be taken seriously as an advocate for mental health, women's rights, racial equity? Great. But then you brand everything you do in this misunderstood princess narrative. It's hard to tell where the cause ends and the career begins." "Wow," she said again, this time with a smirk. "That's rich coming from someone who spent decades profiting off shock value and locker room humor." Howard smiled thinly. "Touché. I never said I was a role model." Joy stepped in again, awkwardly laughing. "Maybe we can all agree everyone's evolving." Meghan rolled her eyes. "I'm not interested in fake niceties." Whoopi's brows furrowed. "Nobody's being fake here, Meghan." "Oh, come on, Whoopi," Meghan snapped. "We all know this show doesn't ask the hard questions. That's why people like Howard show up, to pretend we're edgy while still serving coffee table feminism." A gasp spread through the audience. Joy looked stunned. Whoopi leaned forward, steely. "Are you calling us fake feminist?" she asked, voice calm but laced with steel. Meghan uncrossed and recrossed her legs with visible irritation. I'm saying if we really cared about change, we wouldn't keep inviting men like him to hijack the narrative. Howard laughed quietly. You invited me, sweetheart. Don't pretend I crashed the gates of Buckingham. The room erupted in scattered applause and laughter, some uncomfortable, some delighted. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Meghan snapped. You turn everything into a joke. This isn't funny. Howard's face turned serious for the first time. Neither is monetizing trauma, Meghan. But here we are. Whoopi rubbed her temples. Let's take a quick break before someone jumps over the table. Joy forced a laugh. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with Meghan Markle and Howard Stern, if they're still here. The camera faded to black. As the show came back from commercial, the tension hadn't deflated. It had condensed. The set of The View felt more like a courtroom than a talk show. Meghan sat with one leg tucked under the other now, hands folded on her lap, her jaw clenched in a smile that had lost its warmth. Across from her, Howard Stern leaned back in his chair like a man who had been here before, unbothered, bemused, and just waiting for round two. Welcome back, Whoopi said, voice tighter than usual. If you're just tuning in, you've missed some sparks. More like fireworks, Joy muttered under her breath. Howard turned to Meghan. Can I ask you something real? I'm sure you will, Meghan replied coolly, not looking at him as he ignored the tone. Why are you still so angry? Meghan blinked, then turned slowly to face him. Excuse me? You heard me, Howard said gently. You walked out here with a tattoo on your shoulder to the size of Windsor Castle. You're successful. You're free. You've got a loving husband, kids, millions in deals. Why does it still seem like you're mad at the world? The question hung in the air like smoke. Whoopi looked down. Joy shifted in her seat. Meghan gave a small, tight laugh. You think I'm angry because I don't smile and nod through interviews anymore? No, Howard said. I think you're angry because you built your brand on escaping a system, but you're still letting it define you. That's not true, she snapped. He shrugged. Then prove it. Talk about your work, your causes, your plans. Not your trauma, not the palace, not the tabloids. Meghan narrowed her eyes. You don't get to tell me how to tell my story. I'm not, Howard said calmly. I'm just pointing out that maybe, just maybe, if you keep telling the same story, the world starts wondering if there's anything else. I'm not here to impress you, Howard, Meghan said, her tone dropping like a blade. This isn't Howard Stern Live. This is The View, a show for women. Maybe let the women speak. A low ooh rolled through the audience. Howard raised his hands. By all means, speak, but don't hide behind gender to dodge a real question. Joy jumped in. Let's try not to make this about identity politics. We can all agree that personal experiences are valid. That's the problem, Meghan said, turning to Joy. He doesn't think my experience is valid unless it fits his standards. And honestly, Joy, you're letting him dominate this table like he owns it. Joy blinked. I'm sorry? I came here to talk about my foundation's new initiative, Meghan continued. Not to be interrogated by a man who made his fortune humiliating people. Howard's lips curled into a grin. You're really struggling with the idea that someone might question you, huh? No, Meghan snapped. I'm struggling with the idea that someone like you still gets a seat at this table. And yet, he replied smoothly, you're the one who hasn't stopped talking about me since the show started. Whoopi cut in, her tone firm. Howard, Meghan, we get it, but this is a conversation, not a cross-examination. Let's all take a breath. Meghan folded her arms. It's hard to breathe when you're being gaslit on national television. Howard looked at her for a long beat. Gaslit? Meghan, asking you to clarify contradictions in your public narrative is not gaslighting. It's journalism. You don't get to define journalism, she hissed. Especially not you. No, Howard agreed, but I do get to ask what everyone else is thinking. That's rich, she shot back, coming from a man who used to make women ride in mechanical bulls on his radio show. Howard nodded slowly. Yeah, and I've talked openly about how ashamed I am of some of that. I've changed, evolved. I don't pretend I was always noble, but I own my past. You, on the other hand, seem allergic to accountability. Meghan's nostrils flared. Whoopi's voice came again, this time more assertive. Guys, seriously, we've got producers waving behind the cameras. Let's cool it. But Meghan was on a mission now. You sit there pretending to be this wise truth-teller, she spat. But you're just another old man threatened by a woman who dares to speak out. Threatened? Howard laughed. Meghan, I've interviewed Madonna, Whitney, Hillary Clinton, Lady Gaga. Trust me, I'm not threatened by strong women. I'm skeptical of people who think being criticized means being oppressed. The audience burst into scattered applause. Meghan turned toward the sound with a mixture of shock and contempt. Oh, so that's what we're doing now, she said bitterly. Clap for the guy calling me a liar. I never said you lied, Howard corrected. I said you've made pain into a product. There's a difference. No, there's not, Meghan said sharply. There's only ever judgment. That's all people like you know. Joy tried again. Let's talk about your new documentary, Meghan. Tell us what inspired it. Meghan didn't even look at her. You want inspiration? Here's one. I've had to survive the world's most powerful media machine targeting me every single day for years, and I still show up. That's inspiration. Howard leaned in. You also had that same media machine amplify your wedding, your projects, your causes, your podcast. You can't praise the spotlight when it flatters you and curse it when it doesn't. I never asked for the spotlight, she snapped. You married a prince, Howard said bluntly. That stopped her cold. The audience was stunned into silence. Meghan stared at him, visibly seething. You think that makes it okay? That I deserve what happened to me because I fell in love? No, he said calmly. I think it means you knew the rules and then acted surprised when they applied to you. Whoopi pushed her mug forward. Okay, seriously, we're done here. This is not what the show is for. But Meghan wasn't done. You're a joke, she whispered across the table, a walking relic pretending to be relevant. And you're a brand, Howard said quietly, wrapped in victimhood, trying to sell empowerment while stomping on anyone who asked for clarity. The silence that followed felt like gravity. No one moved. Finally, Joy spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. We'll be right back. The screen faded to black again, but in the studio, nobody exhaled. The third segment of the show began not with applause, but with palpable hesitation. Viewers at home were glued to their screens. In the studio, phones had quietly started recording under tables. The air was thick, part anticipation, part disbelief. As the lights went up again, the host tried to reset. Joy Behar smiled stiffly. Well, it's been a lively morning on The View. We're back with Meghan Markle and guest co-host Howard Stern, discussing, well, a lot of things. Meghan didn't smile. She leaned back in her chair like a queen surveying a court of jesters. Let's not pretend this is a discussion, she said. This has been an ambush. Whoopi folded her arms. Meghan, you've had more speaking time than all of us combined. That's because I have something to say, Meghan replied. Howard chuckled softly. You've said plenty. The question is, has anything changed? That set her off. You know what your problem is, Howard? Meghan leaned forward now, her tone like a switchblade. You think sarcasm is intelligence? You sit there grinning like the smartest guy in the room, but all you're doing is bullying people who have lived through more than you can imagine. Howard's expression didn't change. I don't bully, I probe. I confront contradictions. That's what adults do in public discourse. Oh, please, she snapped. You're a shock jock dressed in NPR clothes. That one got a laugh from the audience, but not the kind Meghan wanted. The sound of people enjoying Howard's composure while she unraveled visibly made her flinch. Let me ask you a question, Meghan said, turning her fire toward Joy now. Would any male guest be treated like this on this show? Joy blinked. Meghan, you're the one who called us fake feminists 20 minutes ago. Because you brought him on this set and let him hijack the message. Meghan, Whoopi cut in, voice firm now, we didn't bring him on to gang up on you. We brought him on because he brings real questions. You wanted to talk about your docuseries. We gave you the space. But every time someone questions the framing, you accuse them of an attack. Meghan was shaking her head, visibly boiling. This is exactly what happens. A woman tells her story and the world wants her to smile while she bleeds. No, Howard interrupted, still calm. The world just wants to know if the bleeding ever stops, or if it's just the trailer for your next exclusive deal. Gasps again, this time louder. That was when it happened. Meghan slammed her hand on the coffee table. The mugs rattled. "That's enough," she shouted. "I don't need to sit here and be patronized by a man who built a career off women's humiliation and by women who apparently forgot what sisterhood means." Whoopi stood now. "Meghan, don't raise your voice here." "Oh, I'm sorry," Meghan said sarcastically. "Are we afraid of passion now?" "We're afraid of entitlement masquerading as trauma," Howard said, without missing a beat. Boom. Silence. Even Joy Behar looked stunned. "You're just mad," Howard continued, "that I didn't kneel when you walked in." "No," Meghan said, eyes narrowing. "I'm mad that the media keeps putting old men on pedestals while dissecting women like cadavers." "You're not being dissected," Howard replied. "You're being questioned. That's the cost of public life. If you want praise without scrutiny, start a fan club. Don't come on a talk show." At that moment, Meghan stood up. The audience gasped again. "I don't need to take this," she said, "from you or this show." "Then don't," Howard said. "The door's right there." Whoopi stepped in front of the desk. Okay, enough. Let's de-escalate." "No, let her go," Howard said plainly. "She's not interested in a conversation. She wants a coronation." "You're disgusting," Meghan said, turning toward him. Howard nodded once. "And you're exhausting." The studio fell completely silent. Finally, a voice came through Meghan's earpiece from backstage. "We're going to cut here if she leaves the frame." But she didn't care. She turned and walked off the set. The cameras tried to pan away, but not fast enough. Viewers at home saw the back of her white suit jacket as she stormed behind the curtain. A long beat passed before Joy finally exhaled and faced the camera. Well, that happened. Howard shrugged and took a sip of water. Whoopi shook her head. "This isn't what we wanted today." "No," Howard said, "but it's what we got." The screen faded to the show's logo, and with it, a firestorm erupted online, dividing fans, critics, feminists, journalists, and everyone in between. The cameras didn't cut immediately. For a full 5 seconds after Meghan Markle stormed off set, the studio sat in stunned silence. The camera panned awkwardly between Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, both still seated, and Howard Stern, who had remained calm, still sipping from his now lukewarm mug of tea as if nothing seismic had just unfolded before a national audience. From backstage, muffled voices and a slammed door echoed faintly into the microphones. Joy finally cleared her throat. "Well, we want to apologize to our viewers for the, unexpected turn of events," she said, hands slightly shaking as she reached for her cue cards. "Obviously, things got a little heated." "A little?" Whoopi muttered under her breath. Howard leaned into the mic again. "Don't apologize for real conversation. You asked me to be here to talk, and that's what I did." Joy turned to him, her voice measured. "There's talking, Howard, and then there's turning an interview into a firing squad." "I didn't fire anything," Howard replied smoothly. "She walked onto the set expecting applause, not questions. That's not a talk show, that's PR. And I don't do PR." Whoopi finally spoke up, her voice low but firm. "Howard, I respect you. You know that. But there's a line between asking tough questions and provoking someone into a public meltdown." Howard shrugged. "Then maybe the problem isn't the question, it's how fragile the answers are." The audience didn't clap. Not this time. The energy had shifted entirely. Some looked contemplative, others uncomfortable. But no one moved. And then, in a rare breach of protocol, executive producer Brian Donnelly's voice came through the studio PA system. "Folks, we're going to take an extended break. Please remain in your seats." But Howard wasn't finished. He turned directly to the camera. The producers didn't cut. Maybe they were too shocked. Maybe they knew what was happening was gold. Either way, the red light stayed on, and Howard Stern, microphone king, provocateur, and accidental truth-teller, took center stage. "You know," he began, his voice quieter now. There's something deeply broken in our culture when celebrities expect public sympathy as a form of currency. Meghan Markle walked onto this set with an agenda. She didn't want conversation, she wanted validation. He adjusted his jacket. And when she didn't get it, she did what she always does. Perform the exit, play the victim, shift the narrative. Joy winced. Howard, no, let me finish this, he said calmly but firmly. We live in a time where being offended is a career, where having a story is more important than having answers. Meghan Markle doesn't want to be questioned because questions shatter the carefully constructed image she's monetizing. He paused. I'm not denying she went through things. I'm not saying the royal family isn't archaic. But at some point, you stop being a survivor and start being a brand. And that's what people see through. That's what I asked her about. And she couldn't handle it. The studio was silent again. Even Joy and Whoopi had stopped trying to interject. Howard leaned back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't call her names. I asked questions. She called that cruelty. Think about that. Finally, Whoopi broke the tension with a simple phrase. We'll be right back. And with that, the cameras faded to commercial. So now we ask you, was Howard Stern out of line for pushing Meghan to answer tough questions? Or was Meghan Markle's walk-off just another calculated chapter in a story she's told one too many times? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more explosive stories like this, where the mask slips and the truth hits harder than PR, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Echo Stories. Because next time, it might be someone else walking off stage.